There's a quiet question forming across the world, especially among older people who have lived through hard economic times before. Are we heading toward another global depression, and is it coming sooner than many expect? This is not a question built on fear alone. It is a question shaped by warning signs that are already visible in everyday life, from rising prices to slowing growth and growing debt. To understand what is happening, why it matters, and what could go wrong, we must step back and look at the bigger picture calmly and carefully. A global depression does not arrive overnight. It builds slowly, often, while many people believe the system will correct itself. Today, several major institutions, including the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, have warned that the world economy is facing weaker growth, rising debt, and growing pressure on governments and households. At the same time, central banks like the Federal Reserve have raised interest rates sharply to fight inflation. While this move aims to control rising prices, it also slows borrowing, investment, and spending. When money becomes harder to access, businesses expand less, jobs become less secure, and consumers pull back. This is where the concern begins. Many countries are now facing slow growth at the same time. Trade between nations has weakened. Manufacturing activity has cooled. Housing markets in several major economies are under strain. When these trends happen together, they can reinforce one another, pushing the global economy into deeper trouble. For older audiences, this pattern may feel familiar. History shows that major economic downturns often follow periods of heavy debt and fast money creation. Governments borrowed heavily during recent crises to support households and businesses. That support prevented immediate collapse, but it also left many countries with record levels of debt. Now, with higher interest rates, that debt is becoming harder to manage. This matters because when governments spend more on debt payments, they have less money for public services, pensions, and support programs. At the same time, people face higher costs for food, energy, housing, and healthcare. This combination puts pressure on everyday life and reduces confidence in the future. Confidence is a key factor in any economy. When people feel uncertain, they save more and spend less. Businesses delay hiring and investments. Banks become more careful about lending. These choices may feel sensible on their own, but together they can slow the economy even further. This is how a downturn can deepen. Another warning sign is the growing divide between financial markets and the real economy. Stock markets may rise at times, but many workers do not feel better off. Secure jobs are harder to find. For older people on fixed incomes, this gap is especially painful. A global depression would not look exactly like the one in the 1930s. The world is different now, but the core features would feel familiar. Long periods of weak growth, high job insecurity, pressure on savings, and rising social tension. What could go wrong if these warning signs are ignored? If governments respond too slowly or make poor choices, economic stress could turn into political instability. History shows that prolonged hardship often leads to public anger, distrust in institutions, and sharp political shifts. This does not happen because people want chaos, but because they feel unheard and unprotected. There is also a risk of countries turning inward. When times are hard, nations may raise trade barriers, reduce cooperation, and compete rather than work together. That can make a global downturn even worse as trade and supply chains weaken further. It is important to be clear and responsible here. Global depression is not guaranteed. Economies can recover, and policy choices matter greatly. But the risks are real, and the timeline may be shorter than many expect if current trends continue. This is why understanding the situation matters. Preparation does not mean panic. It means awareness. It means honest discussion about debt, growth, and fairness. It means recognizing that older people, retirees, and those on fixed incomes are often the most exposed when long downturns arrive. Economic history teaches a simple lesson. The biggest damage often comes not from the first shock, but from denial and delay. When warning signs are dismissed, problems grow quietly until they become harder to control. A possible global depression is not just an economic story. It is a social one. It affects families, communities, and the sense of stability people rely on in later paying attention now calmly and clearly may help avoid the worst outcomes later. Because when economies slow together, the choices made early often decide how deep the hardship becomes and how long it lasts.